Nobody expected it to go this far. What started as a routine interview quickly spiraled into one of the most heated moments in live television history. The audience at the New York studio was buzzing with anticipation as they settled into their seats, waiting for the show to begin. The set was sleek, modern, illuminated by the bright glow of LED panels. The network had been teasing this interview all week, a must-watch showdown between Donald Trump and one of the most outspoken liberal hosts on television, Mark Ellison. Ellison was known for his aggressive, no-holds-barred style. He didn't just interview his guests, he interrogated them. He prided himself on backing his opponents into a corner, exposing contradictions, making them squirm. And tonight he had one goal: humiliate Trump in front of a national audience. Trump, on the other hand, sat across from him looking completely at ease, legs crossed, hands resting on the armrests of his chair. He had been in countless interviews like this before. He knew exactly how the game was played. Ellison leaned forward, his face serious, his voice dripping with condescension. "Mr. Trump, let's be honest here," he said, tapping his pen against the desk. "Many Americans believe that you've been a stain on this country's reputation, a complete disgrace to the office you once held." The crowd gasped. Some chuckled nervously. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Ellison smirked, sensing he had already won. He was waiting for Trump to get flustered, to lash out, to stumble over his words. That's how this usually went. But Trump didn't flinch. Instead, he simply arched an eyebrow and leaned forward slightly. "Oh yeah?" His voice was calm, measured. "And what exactly have you done for this country, Mark?" The smirk on Ellison's face wavered just slightly. "Excuse me?" Trump gestured lazily with one hand. "I mean, it's easy to sit there in your fancy little chair, making smug comments, acting like you're the smartest guy in the room. But let's break this down. What have you actually done? What have you built? What jobs have you created? How have you made this country better?" Ellison blinked. He wasn't used to being put on the defensive. The audience was silent. Trump continued, his voice casual but cutting. "See, Mark, here's the difference between you and me. I've built things. I've signed paychecks. I've employed thousands of people, real people, with real families. You sit here and run your mouth for an hour every night, pretending that makes you important." Ellison's jaw tightened. He tried to force a chuckle. "Mr. Trump, let's stick to the facts. Trump cut him off. "The facts?" He scoffed. "Okay, let's talk facts. Under my leadership, unemployment hit historic lows. Energy independence? Achieved. Tax cuts? Passed. Border security? Strengthened. And all of this while you sat right here, night after night, whining about how the world was ending?" A few people in the audience clapped. Ellison wasn't expecting that. His eyes darted toward the cameras, toward the producers behind the scenes. This wasn't going how he had planned. He cleared his throat. "That's a lovely little speech, but let's not pretend like you didn't leave this country in shambles. The January 6th riots, the division." Trump leaned forward. "You want to talk about division? You personally have done nothing but push hate and fear for years. Every single night, you tell your audience that half of this country is evil, that people who don't agree with you are racist, bigoted, dangerous." He shook his head. "And then you have the nerve to sit here and lecture me about division?" Ellison's face was turning red now. His grip on his pen tightened. "That's ridiculous. I report the facts." Trump chuckled. "No, Mark, you spin the facts. You twist them to fit your little narrative. And when the truth doesn't line up with your agenda, you ignore it completely." More claps. A few cheers. Ellison's confidence was cracking. Trump knew it, and he wasn't done. "You call me a disgrace," Trump said, shaking his head, "but I don't see you turning down the ratings every time you mention my name. I don't see your network refusing to run segments on me. In fact, I'd bet good money that I've made you more money than anyone else. And yet here you are, acting like you're above it all." Ellison forced a tight smile. "This isn't about ratings. This is about holding you accountable." Trump laughed. "Accountable?" He tilted his head. "Buddy, if you cared about accountability, you'd be asking why your friends in Washington are making millions off the taxpayers while hardworking Americans can't afford gas. You'd be questioning why crime is skyrocketing in every liberal-run city. But no, you're too busy throwing temper tantrums about me. Ellison looked rattled. The audience could feel it. The energy in the room had shifted. Trump could have stopped there, but he leaned in even closer, looking Ellison dead in the eye. You don't hate me because you think I'm a disgrace, Mark. You hate me because I don't apologize, because I don't bow to people like you, because no matter how many times you and your friends try to take me down, I'm still standing. And you're just another talking head who will be forgotten the second the cameras turn off. A wave of applause erupted from the audience. Ellison's face was stone cold. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time in his career, he had no comeback. Trump leaned back in his chair, satisfied. He straightened his tie, then glanced toward the cameras with a smirk. Well, he said, this was fun. Ellison swallowed hard. His eyes darted toward the producers behind the cameras, his earpiece buzzing as the control room scrambled to figure out how to regain control of the situation. But it was too late. The segment was already going viral, and for the first time ever, Mark Ellison, the man who prided himself on making others squirm, was the one left speechless. The studio was in chaos. Behind the cameras, producers frantically gestured to each other, speaking into their earpieces, trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. They had never seen Mark Ellison lose control like this. Trump, meanwhile, sat completely at ease, adjusting his tie as if nothing had happened. He knew what had just taken place, and he knew the fallout was already beginning. Ellison's face was rigid, his jaw clenched so tightly it looked like it might crack. His mind was racing. He needed to regain control. He couldn't let Trump own this moment, so he tried again. All right, Mr. Trump, Ellison said, forcing a strained smile. Let's not pretend like your presidency was all sunshine and roses. You left office in disgrace. The riots, the scandals, the impeachments. Do you really expect anyone to believe you were a success? Trump let out a slow, exaggerated sigh, then leaned forward slightly. Mark, he said, shaking his head, let's get one thing straight. You don't decide who was a success. The American people do. And last time I checked, more of them voted for me than any sitting president in history. Ellison scoffed. Oh, come on, you lost. Trump's smirk widened. Did I? The audience erupted in murmurs. Ellison wasn't expecting that. He should have, but he wasn't ready for it. You're spreading misinformation. Ellison started, but Trump cut him off again. No, I'm spreading the truth. He turned to the audience as if suddenly addressing them instead of Ellison. You see what he's doing? He wants to talk about January 6th. He wants to talk about scandals. But notice how he never talks about the economy under my administration. Notice how he never brings up energy independence, the historic unemployment lows, the peace deals, the manufacturing boom. He turned back to Ellison, his expression deadly serious. You don't want to talk about that, do you, Mark? Because it makes you and your friends look bad. Ellison opened his mouth, then closed it. He was struggling now. Trump wasn't defensive. He wasn't scrambling to explain himself. He was on the attack, and Ellison knew it. The applause from the audience grew louder. Some of them weren't even Trump supporters, but they could see what was happening. Ellison was losing. Trump wasn't just holding his ground. He was dominating the conversation. Ellison forced another laugh. Okay, let's take a step back. You're saying you were perfect? Trump tilted his head. Never said that. But let's be honest. Compared to what we have now, I look like a damn genius. The audience burst out laughing. Ellison's eyes widened. This was getting out of control. The network had scheduled a 45-minute segment. They were already at the 30-minute mark, and instead of destroying Trump, Ellison had just given him an unfiltered platform to make his case louder than ever. In the control room, the executive producer was furious. We need to cut this now. But before they could signal to wrap up, Trump went for the final blow. You know what your problem is, Mark? Ellison glared. Oh, this should be good. Trump's smirk faded. You don't actually care about the truth. You don't care about facts. You care about keeping people afraid. Because when they're afraid, they tune in. When they hate someone, they keep watching. That's your entire business model. Ellison froze. Trump gestured toward the cameras. Your viewers at home, they know what I'm talking about. You push fear. You push division. You tell them the world is ending every single night, and then you sit here and act like you're the good guy? He shook his head. You're a fraud, Mark. The room was dead silent. Even Ellison's most loyal viewers could feel it. Trump had flipped the script, and there was nothing Ellison could do to stop it. The control room panicked. Cut to commercial, now. The screen abruptly faded to black. For the first time in his career, Mark Ellison had to be saved by his own producers. Trump leaned back, smiling. Guess they don't want you to embarrass yourself any further. Ellison sat there gripping the desk, his face red with anger. But he had lost. The second the cameras turned back on, the damage would already be done. And Trump? He walked out of that studio, knowing that, once again, he had won. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge us to grow. What would you have done if you were in his shoes? Let us know in the comments below.